Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Saturday Morning Cartoons, your new favorite podcast of everything comic book related and fandom entirety. I am your host, Dougie McDoubles, and next to me is the greatest co-host in my entirety of a best friend, Ray McFlurry II. And today we have something and Ray never thought he could achieve it in his wildest dreams. Over 40 years in the NBA, the greatest photographer known to mankind, Mr. Nathaniel Butler. Thank you so much for joining us, my friend.
Well, who are you guys talking about? That's not me.
Oh, no, don't play coy. Because I know everybody watching, they're like, I don't know this guy. Like, I've never seen his work. Yes, you have. If you've seen an NBA photo taken in the last 40 years, it was taken probably by this man we have on the podcast today.
Without a doubt, yes. You actually have a new book coming out September 24th. Everyone go check it out. Courtside, 40 years of the NBA, in the NBA photography. So excited to see the book. Over your entire discography of photos, this is incredible. How did you collect 40 years?
Well, great question. It was tough. You know, people kept asking me, "Oh, when are you going to do a book? What about this? What about?" And honestly, like, I'm never satisfied. I'm always like searching for that next best photo, and always busy. Like the rest of the world during 2020 pandemic, I had free time on my hands, which was I'm not accustomed to, and started digging through the archive myself. Like the rest of the world was watching Last Dance every Sunday, riveted, and I was like, oh, I was at that game. I remember that. And had, looking through stuff. So basically it started then, just by happenstance that I had some free time. And then in looking ahead, January of 2024, which seemed far away at the time, but that was going to be my 40th year of shooting. So I was like, you know what, let's dip our toes in and see, what we could come up with. And had a lot of, it had a lot of people interested in different publishers and things, and just
I'm sure, yeah.
was sort of like almost a 2-year process, because I was still had my day job while we were doing all this.
Oh yeah, stuff. Still actively shooting. Yeah.
Yeah,
wow.
Exactly.
What is the selection process like for that book? Because you have so many photos. I'm sure there's so many great ones you would have to leave out.
You know what? It was really that was the hardest part, which, people kept saying, well, that's a good problem to have,
Yeah.
But literally,
yeah, but it's still a problem,
Exactly. Who gets in, who doesn't, 40 years is a long time. And then even things like, how do you narrow Michael down to 10 pages, or LeBron 10 or 12 pages?
Yes.
It could do 200 pages on each of those guys.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
You can have a Harry Potter book.
It was very
Michael
tough.
Jordan's career.
Like I said, the publishing people said, well, it's a great problem to have. I wanted to show some variety and not have a lot of similar looks. Like, you have some good action, you have some behind the scenes moments, because I'm a fan, and I think most fans they love those, a little locker room solitude before a game, or the moments that are a little different. I kind of pride myself on doing nice portraits as well, so a little mix of all of those things. But it was tough. I still wake up and I'll say, oh, I wish this was in, I wish that was in, So I probably shouldn't have waited for 40 years, I guess.
Oh yeah, that's a lot of backlog to go through. How did you get your start shooting photos for the NBA?
You know what? As most things in life, like, timing is everything, I was always interested in photography. I played sports, so when I went to college, I wasn't, quite frankly, I just wasn't good enough to be on the team.
Fair enough.
But I was friends with some of the guys. I would hang out in the gym, just started taking pictures, and that was in New York. So I would bump into guys at the bigger games from Sports Illustrated, and then started apprenticing with them, which was the the best training, the best experience, like learning from the literal legends of sports photography.
Oh, I
Uh,
bet.
and just working with those guys as an apprentice for a few years, and then getting to know people at the NBA. And it was just like right place, right time. At that point, I had apprenticed for a while, so I was confident in shooting things. Started
Hmm.
NBA didn't have a photo department then. I would shoot black and white a lot of times for just for the PR department,
Oh,
Uh,
wow.
and living in New York, I was like, hey, you think I could get a pass to go to the Knicks game or go to the Nets game? They were playing in New Jersey at the time.
Yes, of
And it
course.
just sort of, blossomed from there. And it's been a remarkable run.
Oh, that's beautiful. You kind of just made your own little spot in the industry.
Sort of. There's a guy I'm sure you're familiar with, Andy Bernstein, lived in California, and
Okay.
me being in New York, we sort of put our heads together and said, we should create a photo department. NBA Entertainment had just started on the video side of things, so
Oh,
we
wow.
sort of took that blueprint. They were covering games, and they would make those crazy cool VHS tapes that we all loved. You
Of
know,
course, yeah.
um,
The colorful covers and
yeah,
everything.
and there was David Stern was the commissioner. It was again, timing is everything. Really
Hmm.
making a push internationally to grow the game. There were, magazines from Australia, France, Spain,
Hmm.
all over the world that were showing an interest in basketball. So there was a huge demand for the product of good imagery.
Did you ever shoot any international games or like Olympic basketball?
Oh yeah, we did all of that back in the day. There was like they called it the McDonald's Open because they were a sponsor. Have done 4 or 5 different Olympics.
Oh,
Over the
wow.
years. We like obviously everyone talks about the '92 Dream Team.
Of
That was
course.
that was like one of the craziest experiences ever. And that certainly, after that contributed so much to the growth of basketball, NBA, in particular, across the world.
Oh,
Yeah.
definitely. Yeah, we don't get to an NBA where Luka Doncic and Nikola Jokic are the best players in the league without all
Right.
that pushback in the early '90s. Big time.
Right. No, it was fascinating. And even I didn't do this year's Olympics, but just watching, I did some of the pre stuff, but just
Hmm.
watching, that gap closing, the
It
talent.
is crazy.
The talent pool from these other places is remarkable. And I had done some World Cups, FIBA World Cups, where the U.S. hasn't won. You know,
Yes.
um,
Did you take any photos of the 3v3 men's team for the US?
what? I did not. Uh,
Ah, okay. I'm a big fan of Jimmer Fredette. That's why I was
you
asking.
know
Yeah,
what?
yeah.
Super, super good guy. And I guess they were a little disappointing, perhaps. But I didn't. To be honest, I didn't see much of the matches.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but Jimmer is a super nice guy, and always kind of pulling for him.
Man, you're a good guy. I like you. That makes me so happy.
Well, the other
Now,
the other guy, I want to say Canyon Barry is Rick Barry's son,
yes, his grandson. Yes,
Hmm.
sir.
right?
Yeah,
So
shoots the underhand free throw.
yep, exactly. So
Yes.
that's very cool as well. And that's going to
Um,
grow because playing outside, the whole vibe of that, they're trying to kind of recreate beach volleyball with the music and the scene and the whole vibe. That's going to
well,
be
even
huge.
even with the transition from the early 90s with Iverson, where people say you couldn't have street ball moves in, and then
Right.
now people, and even with Steph Curry and Jimmy Fredette changing the 3-point line, and
Right.
now who knows what could happen with the underhand shot. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's going
Um,
to be fun.
Now in the midst of Jimmy Fredette, he's in my head an underrated esque player towards the league and towards his standings. I want to know, in the midst of the Brian Scalabrinis, the Boris Diaws, the Steve Novaks of their eras, who was one of your favorite underrated players to take pictures of?
You know what? It's a great question because, like, they're in the NBA, like they're not really underrated. You know what I mean? Like
no, absolutely.
You're still like one of the 400 or whatever the number is, 350 best players in the world, you know? But those guys, like somehow I missed it. It happened during the Olympics. Joe Harris just retired. He announced his retirement.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
The nicest guy ever and a tremendous player, you know?
Truly.
Truly. And guys like that, I always have a soft spot for, you know. Jeremy Lin, I lived through the Linsanity stuff.
Now you're speaking our language. Okay.
No, but people will never really truly grasp. There's a great documentary.
Yes.
The 38 at the Garden. Like,
yes. I cried.
Like that rivaled like Patrick and the Knicks against the Bulls, like in the 90s, that the Linsanity era. And you talk about, like, we were just talking about my career, like starting the right place, right time, like Jeremy coming in, right place, right time with Mike D'Antoni was the coach. He gave him kind of a little bit more leeway that some of the other coaches wouldn't have. And you look back on that, like he beat the Lakers on a game-winning shot. He beat Toronto on a game-winning shot up in Toronto. New York.
It was unreal.
New York was going crazy.
Insane. It was like they won the championship.
And
it's a perfect storm.
Again, the nicest guy ever. He was sleeping on Landry Fields, his teammate's couch. Like the whole backstory going to Harvard.
No one really expected anything.
That, you know, it makes basketball seem like such a wonderful, and that's why it is such a wonderful worldwide sport. You know,
it is.
He's not 6'10" or so, like whatever. He was like maybe 6'2" or something. I don't know. But
he was like 6'2.5", 6'3", and still coming in as an underdog to beat Kobe Bryant. You know what I mean?
And by the way, guys were after the first couple of games, he caught people by surprise. But after that, guys were looking at him and they were going at it, and he didn't back down.
Yeah, he was still busting them.
The Garden was going crazy, and things like that are just so much fun.
It's so.
You're the absolute best,
great.
man.
Was there ever a moment from something like that you were taking a photo of that you thought would just be like an instant classic that didn't get the love that you thought it deserved?
You know what? Good question. Like the Linsanity thing was cool for me to be there, talking about that specifically. But it was such a big story that one of my photos was on the cover of Time magazine.
Oh wow!
Oh wow! You know, as a photographer, that's cool. But you talk about the crossover. It's like, thankfully, I've had the cover of, you know, a lot of, you know, basketball or sport magazines. But when you cross over into the totally different world, that was kind of cool.
That's a different level, yeah.
And you know what? Over the years, there's been a few, you know, shots, but I'm always like. There was a shot from this year's finals that didn't make it into the book because of, you know, the deadlines of Jayson Tatum lifting up Duece that people went crazy over. And again, a little luck played into that. It was total chaos, you know. But things like that, I've been fortunate enough to be at those games.
I was in the 7th grade visiting my grandmother for the summer, and she had a TV in the little corner of a countertop, and her and my mother were making homemade tamales, and the Lakers and Celtics championship was going on, and it was the year the Boston Celtics won. And I remember seeing Paul Pierce do a spin around fade and asking my mother who that was, and I was just obsessed with the Celtics from then on.
Right.
And now being a Celtics fan over the years, and you obviously taking that iconic shot of Tatum and his son, which brought a tear to my eye. First of all, I showed my father, and it's just, I'm sappy for anything like that. It's a Disney Channel movie, or it's just like, we did it, Dad. You know, like, I can only imagine what they were feeling. What has been some of your favorite Celtic photos, if you have any? Whether you're getting a Nick or someone from else.
Like I grew up a Larry Bird fan, so
Actually, 1 second.
he's gonna pull out a shot.
If you don't mind one day sending us a P.O. box and undisclosed that we can mail you something, I would like to send you a Larry Bird VHS tape. It is a Larry Bird, the basketball legend, and the Larry Bird Night tribute to a legend from when they retired. I have double copies, and I would love to send them to you.
Oh, that's awesome. So I would 100% appreciate that. I grew up a Larry Bird fan, and then starting about with Celtic lore, I was a Knicks fan, but just loved Bird.
Of course.
And then getting to work at the NBA, I got to shoot the Celtics. One of my most memorable pictures early on in my career was the Magic Johnson junior skyhook. They beat the Celtics.
Oh wow.
But in those early mid '80s, the early years for me, I just thought it was like a natural occurrence that we're going to be LA Boston, back and forth, and crazy memories. The old Boston Garden was amazing. The Red Auerbach was still around, and then fast forward when they got, KG, that put them over the hump in 2008 when they won. There's a cool portrait in the book because KG and Pierce were goofballs. Ray Allen I had known for years from college, and we did a portrait, and he's like, give me some inspiration. I was like, oh, well, think of the 17th title, and he's like, good, but then I got him to switch jerseys, so I think KG has Paul's jersey on, Ray has just having some fun, but it shows the camaraderie,
Mm-hmm. It's beautiful.
They had some crazy battles the year that was it 2000. I'm bad sometimes my year. 2010 when they lost to the Lakers in 7 games. I want to say it was KG was just so spent. It was in LA. He walked off the court, and the way that the arena is, he just kept walking. He walked right out of the arena in his uniform. He was just so distraught. He gave every ounce of energy, and that the Lakers won, but Kobe didn't play that well. Ron Artest ended up hitting a couple of big threes. People forget about that. It's a team game. And there were great pictures of Kobe from that, but literally KG walked right out the ramp, right out onto the street in his jersey. He was so spent.
Boy, those were some true battles, man.
You know what? And literally it's sports, right? Like one shot, one play, Jordan hits the 3-pointer in Utah. People forget about John Stockton. There were still 6 seconds left. John Stockton had a dead-on 3-pointer that 8 out of 10 times he would knock down. That's sports.
A lot goes into it. They remember the iconic things, not the context. But
exactly.
Go ahead.
So you're talking about some fun interactions with like Paul Pierce and Kevin Garnett. Do you have any experiences or interactions with players that are like maybe like the craziest interaction, or even like an interaction that was like no one is ever going to believe that just happened, like when they walked away? Was there anything kind of like that?
You know what? It's hard to tell. Like, I'm very obviously I've been doing this a long time, and I'm very things are different now with everyone having a camera phone and things.
Sure.
I've always been very sensitive to the players, privacy and things, because working for the NBA, we are allowed to go into the locker room occasionally, not all the time, so I very much am aware of what a privilege that is.
Oh, yeah. Definitely.
And just being a fly on the wall, get a couple of shots, get out. I'm not going to get in their face and have a flash going off, or something like that, because I love those moments just as a fan,
Right, absolutely.
And I think it does put things into context.
Yeah. Okay, so you have had, like you said, the privilege to be in this league for this long. You have taken pictures of the Dream Team. Were you there for the Redeem Team?
I was.
Okay, so now with the new titled the Avengers, now that they have won the gold, who do you think honestly is the best out of the three?
You know what? I would say the original team. And it's hard, you could debate
Absolutely
all day long.
Yeah.
I think things were a little different in those days. It was throughout the world. It was socially. Like, those guys got together, and that was the first time they were together. So I think people underestimate the mental component of things. Like I said all the time, like, I'm the hugest LeBron fan ever. If I had to pick a fault of LeBron's, is that he's too nice. He doesn't have as nasty a streak as some of the other guys.
Right.
Yeah. Is that a fault? It's hard to say. Yeah. Shaq was too nice. Shaq could have dominated even more than he already did. You know what I mean?
Yeah, a lot of the greats have that a-hole streak to them.
Yeah.
There's something about them.
And so collectively on that original, the original Dream Team, like, Barkley had an edge. There's the famous thing with Angola when he elbowed the guy. There was a fear factor of the other teams. And as you said earlier, the gap has closed. The other talent level is remarkable. You're not going to win by 40 points. Like, those days are over.
Right.
But the talent was different, but there was a fear factor because these guys, Patrick Ewing, super nice guy, but he had a reputation of having an edge to him. Barkley had an edge to him. We know about Michael's edge.
Sure.
Scottie Pippen, like, people don't talk about how good he took such pride in just shutting people down.
Arkansas boy. I mean, there's a great story that he told about Kevin Garnett as a rookie, or as a freshman in college, playing Michael Jordan.
Right.
And Scottie Pippen, like, he's the greatest, an Arkansas boy, just like the both of us. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So that I think that mental component is different. Now all these guys, they're friends with everybody. It's not to say they don't compete the hardest, but
sure.
LeBron is not going to elbow someone in the face on the way to yamming on somebody.
Yeah.
But they did that back then. Karl Malone, no one was taking an offensive foul on Karl Malone.
Right, exactly.
Getting out of the way.
Like,
so it's a little different, but how great would it be to watch those teams, right?
Yeah, it's the same principle of when the Heat would play games and we would see like a little bit of a fight go off. Ray and I would talk about, we get in a call and be like, man, did you see James Johnson on the court? Because James Johnson is a black belt, and that's just one person in the NBA you do not want to mess with.
Just
and
brings the edge
him,
back.
Udonis Haslem, even Isaiah Stewart.
With all the AI stuff now, someone could make a lot of money by making a video game or something for the guys to play against, right?
A new Def Jam or something.
Right.
You've shot photos of every star and every team the last 4 years, but which team do you support and what's been your favorite player?
You know what? Like, I have a job to do. I can't be, a fanboy. There are certain guys that you just gravitate toward because you just respect the time they put in. Like, I've been a LeBron fan from day one. People forget there was a lot of haters when he came in the league. Oh, who is this guy? His high school games were on TV.
Yep.
But just watching, again, like, you watch him work out before a game. He works out 90 minutes harder than most people play in the game prior to a game.
Yep.
And
Right.
oh, it's
Yeah,
how can he still do this at 39 years old? Well, the reason he can still do it is because of how hard he works. You know,
Yeah.
Ray
Yeah,
Allen.
no one works harder for sure.
Ray Allen hits that crazy corner three in games. That didn't surprise me at all because he's there 3 hours before every game. That's what he does. The repetition, watching KD warm up, watching Curry hit these crazy shots. It doesn't surprise me at all. You know, Kyrie Irving is another guy that I would love watching him warm up. People talk about how he finishes with his left hand. Well, it doesn't just happen. He practices that hours every day with his left hand high off the glass. So stuff like that, I'm privileged to be able to watch because we're there early setting up our cameras and things, you know. You can't help but gravitate toward those types of guys. They're good guys, obviously, but you appreciate the time they put in.
Absolutely.
Really? Was there an event the last 40 years that you didn't get to be a part of that you really, really wish you could have been there for?
You know what? It's such a great question, and I have a stock answer. I was very disappointed. I did not get assigned to Kobe's last game. We have a crew in LA that is very good. It costs a lot of money to go there, whatever. And I was bummed.
I understand.
But I got to watch the game with one of my sons. And
that's special.
And I get goosebumps. We still talk about it. We were hopping off the couch, high-fiving, like the craziest bonding moment with one of my boys. And I will cherish that forever.
That's a great memory.
As will he, you know. So you turn, and if I was at the game, might have gotten a great shot of Kobe walking, whatever. But just as a parent and as a fan, again, as a fan, watching his last game was crazy. You know? Yes, he shot a lot, whatever. Who cares? Like,
doesn't matter. It's Kobe.
And by the way, people forget that game meant something to Utah. They didn't just roll over. Like, they were fighting, and he just
they were fighting Houston for that playoff spot.
He just went off, and we were hooting and hollering, jumping up, high-fiving. So that was an awesome moment.
I'll never forget it. Yeah, Gordon Hayward was probably my favorite player in the world at the time. And I think the Rockets had knocked out the Jazz like maybe 5 minutes after tip-off.
Right.
And Hayward was trying to guard Kobe, and he just looked like a helpless fifth grader out there. He was just doing nothing against him.
And that was that was totally a fitting ending for
yes, it was.
If you couldn't walk off with a championship, that was the way to go.
Yep. Now I have one more question before Ray sends you out of here with his final one. You were talking about Linsanity and all of these great players and things of that nature. The entirety of Derrick Rose and his career, especially with the 50-point game, his interviews say like he's been through hell. Were you able to capture any Derrick Rose moments that were just emotional, not just to you, but just to the world and to him?
Yes, because with his, first of all, prior to his, I have a picture of him receiving the MVP trophy.
Yes.
And by the way, the youngest MVP in NBA history, younger than Wilt Chamberlain.
Yes, sir.
Go down the list, right? So unfortunately got hurt again, but his explosiveness was crazy. So selfishly, to shoot him was always fun because you never knew what he was going to do.
Absolutely.
And that was awesome. And then toward the latter years, when he was on the Knicks, watching him work, he knew he wasn't going to play a whole lot. He came out 2 hours before the game, full drench, sweat, putting in time, putting in the work. And he would work out with his son. You could read about his son maybe one of these days as being the next generation NBA talent, But then the Garden
we're already seeing that with Bronny.
the Garden crowd cheering for Rose because they knew he kind of personified a little bit of New York toughness, and they all knew what he had been through, you know?
Absolutely.
Love Derrick Rose.
Yeah, love him. Before we get out of here, I have two questions. My father was really excited about this interview. He was very interested in photography back before I was born, before the digital age. So he had a few questions. He wanted to know how old you were when you sold your first photo, and if you had ever taken a photo that you regretted taking.
You know what? Great questions. I was in college, and I worked, instead of working for the school newspaper, I actually worked for the alumni newspaper, because the alumni newspaper paid me like $50 a photo or something.
Oh, wow.
So that was it. That was an interesting little tidbit. There are photos. Sometimes there was a photo of Larry Bird that I did not take because I was overly sensitive. You know how we do these walk-in shots now? Everybody wants to, like back in the day, Bird was walking up the ramp of the old Boston Garden. He had sneakers around his neck and a ball under his arm, like a high school guy. And I didn't take the picture because it just didn't feel right, you know? But I have it in my head.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's some moments you just rather live in. Yeah, I get it.
But there aren't too many, photos that I regret taking. I have a lot of pictures that I took that will never become public because I don't think it's appropriate,
Absolutely.
Because
sure.
After the Bird thing, I started thinking about, well, you should press the button and then worry about it later, because you can't ever recreate the moment,
That makes sense, yeah.
If something's, inappropriate, whatever. And things are very different now because these guys are so accustomed to everybody with social media, like I said earlier, having a camera, having a phone, but I kind of pride myself on, a kind of a cerebral thought process about when to take a picture, when not to. A coach yelling at somebody in a locker room, where that should remain a private moment,
Absolutely.
Things like that.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for being here for Saturday Morning Cartoons. This has been an absolute dream of Ray's and an absolute dream of mine to meet this man behind all of the greatest photos of all time in NBA sports history. It is a milestone, not only in our careers, but just for fandom and your dreams alone. Mr. Nate Butler, thank you so much for being here. Truly, it has been an absolute honor. You are a king, my friend. Thank you so much for being a part of our childhoods and our entire lives, and for generations' lives. You truly are an artist, my friend. You were meant to do this.
Thank you. I appreciate that, and it's been fun for me as well, guys.
Perfect.
Hopefully, people enjoy enjoy the book. And
September 24th, ladies and gentlemen, please go get it.
That's it.
Hey, what happened? Why are those squiggles on the screen?
Those are called end credits, Patrick.
End credits? But I don't want it to end.